Okay, and now Professor Dedi Meiri from the Technion behind the smokescreen of medical cannabis.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's coming back home. I did all my studying in Tel Aviv University. It's relevant to my speak, so I will mention it. I have a first degree in biology. I have a master's in biochemistry in Nathan Nelson lab. And then together with Adina Breman from the Faculty of Plant Molecular Biology, I did a PhD. And then I moved to Toronto to do my postdoc in cancer biology in Princess Margaret Hospital related with sick kids. And I did cancer research for 4 years. I came back and I got my lab in the Technion, which is related to TACC, the Technion Integrated Cancer Center. And my lab in general is focused on cancer research. When I established my lab, I started to work on what I did in my postdoc, which was how cells that usually don't have the ability to move, getting the ability to start to crawl and to invade and to create metastasis. One of my major problems was with myself, that I didn't felt as an expert for cancer. I did 3.5 years very successful as a postdoc with 5 good papers, but I didn't feel an expert. Nathan Nelson used to say that an expert is somebody that knows everything about nothing, and I didn't feel like that. I have a good background in biochemistry and very good background in plant biology. Unfortunately, my father is also a farmer, and he was sick, and for 4 years I was a farmer, so agriculture. So I always try to look how I'm bringing back the plants back to my research. I thought that it will be advantage in my research. Around 5 months after I established my lab, still trying to recruit people and to understand how to build a lab, there was a publication by a Japanese group that showed that if we treat breast cancer, MDA 231, with cannabis, we are blocking the ability to migrate and to crawl. And the reason I saw this publication was because there is a Google scholar that's showing that somebody quote your work, and they showed that it's blocking the migration through a pathway that I found in my postdoc, and I was very excited. For me, cannabis was a plant, nothing more than that. I thought I saw their publication, not a good one. I saw holes in the publication and thought I can close these holes and have a nice, fast publication. And we started to work, and then I started to learn a little bit of cannabis. So what is cannabis? Cannabis, it's a plant. We used to to see it like that with the finger-shaped leaves, but actually we are using the flowers. If there is plant biologists here, you can see that on the flowers there are trichomes. There are like small hairs, and in the base of the trichomes there is specific cells that create specific compounds called cannabinoids. And this plant is unique because it's one of the only plants that create these unique compounds that called cannabinoids. It creates many compounds of these, around 140 compounds. And the reason they are famous is because one of these compounds, just one of them, THC, is psychoactive and cause you to feel high and very happy if you're eating cookies or smoking it. These are the compounds. But actually it's affecting our body so powerfully because it's the only plant that produces this compound. But animals, actually all the animals except insects, create this compound. So in our body we have a system called the endocannabinoid system that create these unique compounds. We have a system which is a regulatory system, a system that creates homeostasis on many other systems that control homeostasis on other systems, the way we feel appetite, the way feeling mood, it's affecting our sleep. It's very affecting on our immune system, but it's a way to keep homeostatic. So when our immune system is hyperactivity, it will balancing down and so on. And these compounds affect this system. There are many receptors to this system, more than 30 receptors. There are more than 100 ligands in our body that called endocannabinoids, and actually the plant is mimic and binding these receptors and activate them. These are usually GPCR receptors, but because I have just 15 minutes, I won't go deeper and deeper. So when we want to start to do a research, we first understood that it's a plant, and plants have many chemotypes. So today in my lab, I have over than 650 different types of cannabis. So the problem is how to start. Second, as I said, every one of them have many compounds, cannabinoids, but over than this, when you're doing an extract or you're smoking it or making an oil, there are other active compounds inside that can affect our body, like terpenes and flavonoids. So in the extract we have, as my Polish mother said, a gamish of a lot of compounds. And the problem that when we started to work with this around 3 years ago, usually people talking about two compounds, CBD and THC. People don't know more than this. There was no lab that had the ability to read these compounds or to dissect them, to purify them. We have a huge problem, and looking on two compounds or 7 compounds from 600 or 500, it's the tip of the iceberg, so we couldn't work. And for half a year, I knocked my head to the wall. I tried to find somebody to help me. I tried to find collaboration. I fly in the world to Toronto, to Colorado. Usually people that know a lot of cannabis, smoke a lot of cannabis, and it's a huge problem to work with them. So in order to solve it, this is reality. I know a lot. I'm for 40 years selling cannabis. Probably I don't want to work with you. So in order to solve it, together with Professor Tomer Shlomi, we developed a method to analyze all the active compounds in cannabis. And today we have the ability to analyze actually all the compounds, all the cannabinoids, all the terpenes, all the flavonoids. So if we're looking here on 20 different chemotypes or strains, as a plant biology, I have a problem to call it strains. It's not a different strains, but that's usually the terminology with the grower. So you have here 20 different chemotypes of cannabis, and these are the compounds, the active compounds, the cannabinoids. So this is the THC, the phermos, and the CBD. And this is a heat map where when it's dark, the meaning that this cannabinoid is highly expressed in this strain. When it's white, the meaning that it's low expression. What I want to show you, these are 20 different strains that a patient can get in Israel, and look how different they are. Actually, for me, every one of them, it's a different medicine. So a patient is getting this cannabis or getting that cannabis, different compounds will enter his body, different compounds will bind the receptors, different compounds will affect him, and this is the reason that one cannabis increase appetite, one cannabis decrease appetite, one cause you to feel very sleepy, one cause you to feel very alert, but we don't have the ability to distinguish it. So having the ability at least to look on these compounds open a lot of options for us. We're actually the only lab in the world, which is crazy, that have this ability to look into the cannabis and to know what are the compounds. And the same with the endocannabinoids system. We have over than 100 endocannabinoids in our body. Usually people talking about 2 anandamide and 2 AG, even though we can recognize in the blood over than 100. So how are we solving this? I have 600 chemotypes. I have many diseases being treated with cannabis. I have in every one of them hundreds of compounds. So what we are doing what we usually do as a biologist. We are doing screening. So I'm dividing this screening to 2 major arms. One is preclinic screening on cell lines, on mice models. The second one is clinic. The difference with these compounds, or this medicine, I will call it, from other medicine, that we first treating the patient and then asking what it's doing. Okay, so we have in Israel 40,000 patients that getting cannabis under prescription of a physician that treat cannabis. But what the hell is cannabis? They can get whatever they want. Okay, there are in Israel at least 95 different materials that a patient can get, and nobody can distinguish when or to know what they're inside. So I'm dividing this to clinical and preclinical, and I will try to show in the 10 minutes that I have two samples of that. So in the preclinical, we have equipment to do high throughput screening machine. This is the IMX that we have. This is the in-cell that you can grow the cell lines in the plant. And I will show an example from the cancer. So here we look on 10 different strains of cannabis. These are the name, Mickey Mouse, whatever. We have Mickey Mouse and Goopy, and these are the name of medicines for patients. And if we look on 4 microgram, this is melanoma cells. You see that this is, we're looking on deaths and amount, and in 4 microgram that you see that there are extract or strains that not affecting the cells at all, and there will be extracts that are very effective by killing these cells and causing apoptosis. So first of all, we find out that there is a specificity between the types of the cannabis and its ability to affect the plant. We find out that it's not the THC and the CBD, the major ones. I won't show this result, but also when you look on the same types of cancer, here we look on colon cancer, you see that in the same types of cancer, there will be strain that will kill these types of colon cancer, but not affecting these types of colon cancer. This is prostate cancer. Again, different strains will affect the prostate cancer versus the colon cancer, but in this prostate cancer, there is just one strain from the 600 that we checked that was affecting by killing the strain. So there is a specificity between the combination of the compound or the existence of these compounds and our ability to affect these cells. So how we are solving that? If even in internal the same cancer, we have diversity, we are going narrower and narrower, and we're trying to look what we call personal medicine, to look on specific point mutation in a specific protein, and to look which compound will affect this mechanism. So here we look on BRCA1 mutation. I will say the colors is how much aggressive the mutation. So the red one, the blue one, it's without BRCA1 mutation, and the yellow is very aggressive mutation. And now we look on survival. Every bulk like that, it's a different strains of cannabis. So you see, this one didn't affect, this one didn't affect, until we finding one strain that have a full correlation with the mutation, whereas that we see that there is a correlation. And from there on, I'm doing what I learned to do for 15 years, cell biology. I'm trying to understand which compound bind which types of receptors, how it's affecting them, what is the mechanism, what is the cell biology that happened there. When we are finding, and I understand that it's real, we are going to mice model. You see here, treating the mice, how it's decreased the tumors, and we know to do all this work. So this is one arm of that, to find out what is the mechanism and how it's affecting the specific cells or the specific mechanism. The other arm is to understand from the cocktails of compounds which one is doing the effect. And it can be 1, 3, 7, 15, I don't care. My slogan to my students is that I want the minimum compound that's doing the maximum effect. I don't know what will be the result. So how we're doing it, we're taking the whole extracts that we started to treat and we fractionate it. We're using HPLC preparative, and we put, if we have 100 compounds, 25 in the first tube, 25 in the second tube, and we fractionate it. We're going back to the cells, and again, this is survival, so if it's lower, it's better. The red one is the whole extract, and the yellow one is one of the fraction. You see all the other fraction didn't affect the cells, and there is one that's similar to the whole extract. When we have it, we're going narrower and narrower. So if it was fraction 2, we'll take this fraction and fraction it again until we'll go to the specific compounds that are doing the specific effect. In the BRCA1 that I just showed you, we find out that we need just three compounds, 3 cannabinoids to have this effect. One of them, don't have even a name, 331-8B, and is very low. So we need 3 compounds. If we purify this compound and we put them on the cells, we're getting exactly the same effect as we get with the whole extract. But if we're taking one of these compounds out, it's not effective anymore. So there is in cannabis something we call the entourage effect, the familia effect. It's a paper by Rafi Meshulam and Professor Ben Shabbat that showed in 98 that in cannabis, if you purified one compound, it's not doing the effect that the whole extract. And they said it's the entourage effect. You need a family of compounds. So if you're taking the ligand, they're explaining the ligand binding the receptor, but it's not strong enough to activating it. And usually when I'm giving a talk, I'm saying it's like to go on the beach in Herzliya and one kind of an arse coming and starting to push you. It's not affecting you, but if he's coming with his familia effect, then you have a big problem. It's very nice as a story, but it's not working in biology. In biology, we have affinity and avidity, ligand binding, receptors. So the reason that we have this complicated reaction is because we have many receptors that expressing on these cells. Some cells will expressing these types of receptors. Some cells will express different receptors. On these ligand are activated. They can activate the receptors, so can block the receptors, and we're getting a complicated action. We are showing this in many other examples today. In my lab, I have a division that's doing neurobiology. We are showing it in Alzheimer, in epilepsy, and I won't go to these details. So this is one arm that's doing preclinical, trying to find out which compound affecting which pathways in the cells. The other arm is what we call the clinical arm. So we have in Israel 40,000 patients that getting cannabis. But our ability in Israel, because it's a small country, that we have actually 8 authorized growers that supply the cannabis to the patient. These 8 authorized growers supply around 10 different strains to the patient. So altogether we have around 100 varieties of, I will call it, medicines that patient can get. It's something that I can follow up. So what we said, okay, if we have 100 different types of cannabis, which contain hundreds of compounds inside, and the patient getting it for something like 12 different indications, for epilepsy, for pain, for treating nausea and increase appetite, to improve sleep. So we have something that is like big data. So we said, okay, let's create this data. One arm will follow up on every medicine that the patient can get. Today, or actually in the last 2 years, every cannabis that a patient can get in Israel, we're getting samples to my lab that we're doing full metabolomic analytics to this. We're checking all the cannabinoid terpenes and flavonoids in this sample. So every time that a grower pick a batch, every time that they pick new grow, we're getting samples and we have analyzing everything. So if my grandma getting Scooby-Doo from Candox in December, I know exactly what was in Scooby-Doo. Okay? The other arm, we're doing follow-up on the patient. We have questionnaire to every indication that the patient can get. We have today 5,000 patients that filling the questionnaire once a month, and we're trying to align this together to say, okay, these strains increase appetite in 80% of the patient. What are the compounds that inside that can increase the appetite? And this we're trying to take to animal model and clinical trial. I want to show one sample of work that we did, and this is with the autistic kids. 2 years ago, few autistic kids started to get cannabis in Israel because they also have epileptic-like seizures. Autism going alone a lot of the times with seizures, and these 3 kids got the cannabis to reduce the seizures, but the families came back to the physician after two months, said for the seizures it was fine, not perfect, but it totally changed our kids. The kids are less, they have less anxiety, they're less violent, more communication. And there was a decision in Israel to start to treat kids with severe autism that don't have any other treatment. These kids are very, very aggressive to themselves and the surrounding. These kids not communicate usually at all. Most of the time, not even eye contact. So we are talking about very, very severe kids. Half of them are hospitalized by force because the families can't hold them. And the treatment started in one hospital Professor Adi Aran from Sharei Tzedek started treatment, and we did the follow-up on these kids about what the cannabis they are getting, and we checked also 32 parameters, how it's affecting them. So one important thing, kids in Israel getting cannabis without THC. I told you in the beginning that there is one compound that is psychoactive, that causes you to feel high. So Litzman have two rules they usually saying in meeting. He said, I don't want to see kids smoke, and I don't want to see kids stoned. Everything else I'm fine with it. So these kids are getting cannabis with high CBD, low THC, and they are not stoned. So the result was phenomenal. We follow up over than 100 kids. We checked 32 parameters, and in most of these parameters there was a huge improvement in aggressiveness. We see 82% improvement in the kids with sleep, anxiety, communication. Almost in all the parameters, we saw a huge improvement. It literally changed the life of these families. Half of these kids that was hospitalized by force after 2-month treatment sent back home because there was no reason to keep them in the hospital. One very interesting results that we saw, that there is huge difference between male and female. The success is mainly in males. You can see here improving in habits, 53 improve in male, 0 in female. Repetitive movement, 48% improvement in male, 9% in female. Eye contact, 47% improve in male, 0 in female. Respond to name, 50% improve in male, 0 in female. It's a phenotype that it's clear, and I don't have a clue why we couldn't solve it till today. And another thing that is very important, the difference between the strain that this kid get. In general, they got 8 different types of cannabis because we have 8 different types of growers, and every one of them is a great physician. 6 from the 8 didn't finish high school, but they know better than everybody else. So they decide for the patient what they are getting. So we have 8 different types of cannabis that they get. And you see that one of them, all of them high CBD, low THC, but you see that one of them, all the kids that got it show improvement. The blue is improvement, green is no change, and red is getting worse. So you see that one strain improved 100% of the kids, and then we have a reduction. There was 18 kids that got pure CBD, because this is the major compound in all of these strains, and we see that pure CBD is not affecting the kids. So it's something more than the CBD, but we literally saw that there is difference between these strains, even though they have the same major cannabinoids. So the story about this one, and for me it's a very important result, started 4 months ago, when this is the major strain that the kids get. And because in Israel, you know, it's community, everybody have WhatsApp, everybody knows the other one, so the families told themselves, and also I'm showing this result in conferences, that this strain is better than the other strain. So most of the families started to move to this company and started to get this strain. Because we're talking about a plant, this company that gave these strains with high CBD ran out after 1 month. But to grow cannabis takes 3 months. So for 2 months, they didn't have the material to get to the families. But they won't say it, right? Because then they will lose their customers. So actually he said, okay, this is not a problem. I'm reminding you that all the world almost accept us looking on 2 compounds, CBD and THC, the physician, the patients, the growers. So on the bottle of the extract of the oil that the kids get in written CBD 20, THC 1, this is the ratio between them, and that's it. So the company just changed the strain that they are using, which look the same from the amount of CBD and THC. And also the Minister of Health demand just these 2. In 2 days, we had a disaster. 1 kid after another had crisis. They become much more violent even before the treatment. They have a burst of violence. They had a decrease in all the parameters that we checked. One of the kids jumped on his mother and beat her in a way that she needed to be hospitalized. One kid went out of the window, cut himself all over. One kid had such a burst of violence that his father told me that when he tried to hold him, he broke his two arms. It was so violent. We had a crisis, more than 40 evidence in 2 days of that. We got a sample from the other plant and we saw that even though there is the same amount of CBD and THC, other compounds are totally different. And this is the things that I'm looking. So now I can see other compounds that are different between these strains and limited my preclinical. I can start to check these compounds that are different between these two strains in preclinical, in mice model and animal, in cell lines in animal models. So these are the team in my lab that doing all this work. I just want to say thank you to the major people. Dr. Shirley Berman did all the work with the analyzing the cannabinoids and the endocannabinoids. Dr. Igal Luria is the head of the immune group in my lab, or the hematology group. Dr. Liran Baram is the head of the cancer group in my lab, and Dr. Gil Levitus is the head of the neuro group in my lab. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One question. Choose. Right.
Different genetic causes, different mechanisms. So what do you think? Is it affecting a common pathway of aggression, a common pathway common to autistic mechanism?
First of all, I'm not an expert for autism and I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to use here Tzipi to help me, that's sitting near me in the Technion. But I think it's affecting the symptoms and not the mechanism of the autism. It's reducing anxiety. It's reducing, we see improvement in contact, in communication. And my belief, and again, it's not fair to say it because I'm not an expert, my belief that because there is less aggressiveness, less anxiety, it's open more time and space for these kids to communicate and not really improving the communication directly. It's not surprising. We know that cannabis reduces anxiety. We know it relaxing. There is a joke that, when you smoke cannabis, said everything is tomorrow. So it's calm you down, it's relaxing you. And I guess it's part of this. The bottom line, it's changed this family's life, which I must say that in the meeting with the Minister of Health, I was totally against give these kids cannabis. I stand on my back feet that we shouldn't, and I was wrong. So it's okay.